Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Ebbsfleet Development Corporation Planning Committee. Apologies for the slightly late start. This meeting will be recorded and then will be available later. First going to do introductions and then we'll turn to the agenda. My name is Neil Cameron. I'm the chair of this committee and I'm a member of the EDC board. I'll turn to Valerie.
Good evening, I'm Valerie Owen. I'm vice chair of the planning committee and a member of the EDC board. Exactly.
Good evening, I'm Councillor David Moat from Dartford Borough Council. My portfolio is housing.
Good evening, I'm Penny Marsh and I'm an independent member of the planning committee.
And Mark.
Yep. Hi, I'm Mark Pullen, I'm the Director of Planning in Place. Other officers around the table, Jed Goodwin-Roberts, who is the case officer for the application, and Tim Sharp.
So item 1, apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillor Croxton and from Fred Marudas. Councillor Croxton may join in a moment.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest in addition to standing declarations?
If I could just bring your attention to the fact that I am in fact a borough councillor for Greenhive and Knockall, and I have made representation with reference to this application before, but the caveat is that it's not a substantive and I've not made my mind up in any way concerning the actual application in advance.
Thank you. And I think just so that it's on the record, the representation that you made is recorded on our supplementary information sheet, and you say that you reserve your thoughts on this application in case it is heard by the planning committee.
I couldn't have said that better, Chair.
That's what you said.
But you said it so much better than I did.
Good. Urgent items?
No, nothing today, Chair.
Record of the meeting. So we have got the minutes of our meeting we held on the 28th of August 2024. Any issues on those minutes, or can we approve them as a correct record of the meeting? Agreed? Good. So we go on to item 5, which is the Ingress Park site, Ingress Park Avenue, which is a planning application proposal which is before us. I'm just going to, for the benefit of those who are representing the applicant, and I think there are 2 people online, Christopher Fry and Sam Warner. We can see that you're online. The procedure that we're going to follow is our normal procedure, which you can find in our terms of reference, and that is officer presentation of up to 10 minutes. Then there's a chance for supporters to speak, and you get 5 minutes in total. You either or both of you can speak, but 5 minutes max total. And then there will be any questions from the committee to clarify or to find out more about the matters you've raised and matters raised in the application. When we completed that process, we'll move to the committee debate and decision. So I hope all that's clear. So I'm going to turn to Jed Godwin-Roberts, who's going to present this application. Jed.
So the application brought forward to the committee tonight is an application to provide additional parking of 11 spaces in association with the community centre within Ingress Park development. The application, or the applicant has advised that the car park is to assist with the transfer of the community centre to the Swanscombe and Greenhive Town Council. Since 2012, when the community centre was granted and given planning permission, the building is laid vacant, and the lack of parking is considered to affect the viability of bringing forward the use of the community centre. As part of this application, there has been a Section 106 agreement to ensure that the parking is provided solely with the community centre use. Sorry. So here's the site location. So the application site itself is located to the east of the community centre, which is the building in the centre of the roundabout. And further beyond, you know, to the east of the application site and inclusive of the site is the triple SI. And you can see in that screenshot there, there's a faded path that runs through. That's public right of way DS01. So this slide shows just kind of the wider context of the Swanscombe triple SI, and shows the application site in the orange square to the very westernmost edge of the kind of green outline. So that's just a zoomed in area of where the car park is proposed in context of the wider triple SI site. In terms of the layout of the site, as previously mentioned, there is a public right of way that is currently running through the site. It's intended for that to be re-diverted to the north of the site. That would form part of a section 257 under the Town and Country Planning Act application separate to this. So it's not for consideration as part of this, but it's just kind of for reference that that is part of the proposal, is to relocate the path. In terms of the site, it's laid out. The existing crossover, there's already a crossover there that's been constructed, so that's to be resurfaced, and then there'll be tactile paving adjoining that, as seen in the kind of the yellow squared bits next to it. There's a public footpath that runs into the site, so that's the red outlined dark area to the south of the kind of crossover. There's 11 parking spaces. The access would be through a controlled gate. And the site would be laid out predominantly within the parking area, a surface called net paved, which allows grasses to grow within. So that's effectively the site layout. In terms of the, here we go. So as mentioned, the application site is within a triple SI, and as part of the developed proposals with this being within the triple SI sites, a biodiversity improvement has been proposed with this. These improvements include use of net paving within the site to enable plants to grow within the ground. Native species hedging is proposed along the eastern part of the site, so along the eastern boundary, and then I can't really point to it, but the darker green areas, that's the kind of reinstatement of the existing kind of grasslands within the site. So these are some of the biodiversity improvements being proposed for this. So as outlined within the committee report, the proposal, you know, is within a triple SI site, and you know, the site has been previously designated. The site cannot be avoided in terms of, you know, finding alternative uses of the site. However, it is considered that the proposed mitigation, along with the kind of the community benefit of providing the car park in line with policy M17 of the Dartford local plan, it's considered that in this instance, and as kind of explained within the report, that the principle of the development would be considered acceptable with that. That's the end of the slide deck.
Thank you very much. Can I just clarify, you said cannot be avoided by finding alternative uses. I think you might have meant by finding alternative sites.
So that's correct, yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, that's very helpful, and just remind ourselves that we've got the committee report and the supplementary information. So thank you for both of those. Now going to turn to we haven't got any objectors registered, so I'm going to turn to the applicant, and we have a speaker registered. So Christopher Fry.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, councillors, members of the public. First of all, I'd like to thank your officer for providing a good presentation and a very clear committee report that outlines the material considerations that surround this application. First of all, I'd like to make a correction in the applicant's presentation pack. I incorrectly referred to Habitat's regulation assessment that, as this site is triple SI only, the Habitat's regulations do not therefore apply. So the site has had benefit of plan emission previously, within referencing the office report, for 7 parking spaces of the community centre, 6 of them are visitor spaces and 2 van spaces. This permission was not implemented before it expired, and in the intervening period, this site has become part of the Swanston Triple SI Peninsula. The Swanston Triple SI is known for its geology, its vascular plants, invertebrates, wetland areas, and botany marsh, which supports animals such as the grey goose, shelduck, little egret, and grey heron. Now, whilst Natural England's objection to loss of part of this triple SI is noted, this site, as reported by officers, covers 0.1 hectares of a 260 hectare designation and covers less than 0.03% of the triple SIs affected. Leaving that aside in terms of the area, the site has little of the inherent qualities for which the triple SI is designated for. The site has low vegetation, which means that no nesting or limited foraging opportunities is available for birds, and the grassland is not considered suitable for ground nesting birds. There's only a small limited area that is suitable for foraging reptiles, and the application has been supported with a reptile strategy, which details with precaution measures how to deal with reptiles. There's no records of any great crested newts recorded within 2 kilometres of the boundary, and there are no suitable areas contained within the site for 1,700 species of invertebrates that are contained within the triple SI at present. And there's none of the nationally scarce vascular plant species that occur within this car park area. One must turn therefore to paragraph 186 of the National Planning Policy Framework that states there needs to be a clear framework for determining land that affects habitats and biodiversity, as stated within paragraph 6.11 of the officer's report. Those key procedures are to avoid, adequately mitigate and compensate. In this particular situation and the proposal that's before you this evening, there are no feasible alternative solutions available here. The adjacent community centre, which is to the left of the plan that's before you on this screen, needs these parking spaces and in a location that is functionally suited for it. Otherwise, if you look at paragraphs 96 and 97, which advocate social well-being within our communities, this car park will inherently help to sustain that particular community centre and those people that visit it and the staff that are employed through it. We must also consider that there's not the ability here to consider a no additional parking scenario. It must be acknowledged that there'll be some visits to this community centre that will travel by car, as well as staff who'll be manning the building. And it's been crucial through our discussions with the Town Council looking to take on the building that an additional car park has been requested. There's the ability here to adequately mitigate. It is considered that through no lighting, vegetation and any kind of clearance outside of protected bird nesting seasons, reptile mitigation methods in the form of vegetation management and the relocation of any reptiles, including the landscape improvements that are before you on this particular plan, that there is the ability here to adequately mitigate. The test of compensation that's in paragraph 186 is an alternative to mitigate, but compensation should be commensurate to the level of loss. And in this particular case, this quality of area has little integrity and there's no available land that would afford the functional, as I've said previously, for the community centre. So therefore, the tests of avoid and mitigate, which are the 2 key tests here, have been accepted. It is therefore respectfully expected that in accordance with the officer's report that this application be approved subject to the conditions and legal agreement as referenced. And my ecologist consultant Sam Warner is here tonight to answer any of your ecology questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Committee members, any questions for the applicant?
I just have.
David, Councillor May.
Thank you. Thank you, Christopher. That was very, very concise, quite interesting. I know you said this, and I just want to clarify this. This was a planning application that has been on the books for a very long time, and it was allowed to drift, and now we brought it back, and that unfortunately coincided with the triple SI, which is a fairly recent very sort of recent activity within this area. That is the correct. I am understanding.
That's correct. Yes. Well, sorry. So let's just clarify. In regards to your officers the committee report, it refers to a 2017 and a 2017 approval, to which that permission then subsequently expired. It is during the intervening period whilst that approval was going through its time procedure that this section one, sorry, that this triple SI has been actually designated. So now I'm before you with this application, which was submitted in back March 2023 before I joined Crest, that we find ourselves with this triple SI designation.
The second, Chair, is it's referred to as being exclusive use by the community centre. How are we going to maintain that exclusive use? Just if you can clarify that for me. Is there going to be a gate on it with a lock, or something like that?
Sorry, is that a question to me? Sorry.
Sorry, Kristen. Yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So essentially, can you see there's a thin black line that basically where you come in from the access, the thin black line, that is going to be a barrier arm, which further details can be conditioned through the permission and the overall management of the car park. We're down to the community centre operatives.
Thank you.
Good. Anybody else got any other questions for the applicant? No? Well, thank you very much indeed. We'll now turn to our discussion. And can I, just before we turn to our discussion, can I just ask, perhaps I can ask you, Mark, in the supplementary report, you refer to policy M14 in the Dartford local plan. And you say, and that's at paragraph 2, and you say it's, in this instance, the development is considered to cause an adverse impact, which is to biodiversity value. So 2 questions for you. Are you advising us that the proposal complies with or does not comply with M14? And what's the, I noticed paragraph 5, there's a view on overall compliance with the development plan.
Yeah, absolutely happy to provide some clarity on that. Yeah, so the solicitor's view is that the scheme does not comply with M14 of the plan. When you look at the plan as a whole, and there's obviously lots of policies in the plan, lots of considerations to consider. Our view is that the scheme does comply with the plan as a whole.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Sorry, anybody else? I just thought I'd clarify that. Had a discussion. Any views?
I know this site very well, and it's a fairly scrubby piece of land, which unfortunately has been allowed to overgrow. And I know that there is a potential requirement for this. I see nothing that what is represented that I would feel adverse to. I believe, strangely enough, that because it was allowed to expire and it's been brought back, the actual mitigating activities they put into this new plan is far better than the original plan. Although there appears to be more spaces, I think there's been more work on the actual biodiversity activity. And I'm always concerned about rainwater runoff, although it's only a very small area. But the fact that they are actually putting a paving system in there that will encourage growth, I think is excellent idea. So it ticks all my boxes.
Good. Anybody else?
Thanks. I mean, yes, it was explained that the original planning permission predates the land designations and SSS. There are other issues around Dartford's policy, really. Very stringent restrictions under policy M14 in saying no planning permission will be granted unless it can be clearly demonstrated biodiversity won't be adversely affected. And then in the officer's report, this is counterbalanced by M17 saying yes, but it provides community benefit. But what I couldn't see exactly, that the report and the recommendation is takes a lot of of credence from the proposed mitigation, which is on site. And I can see that there are conditions requiring the landscape plan to come forward and indeed for the planting to take place within, I think it's a year. But I can't see how we are going to ensure that it's maintained. There doesn't seem to be a condition which covers that, and I've seen in another application, unless I've missed it. But it does seem to be really important, given that this is now an SSSI, and that's the mitigation.
Oh,
Have I missed it?
so yeah, so I think that's covered under condition 5. Detailed landscape management plan and maintenance schedule would need to be approved in writing by us.
Yes, but how do we how do we ensure that it's maintained and retained in perpetuity? Do you see what I mean? Sometimes we have conditions which say it will be maintained for 10 years or something, and this doesn't seem to cover that. And yet, given the land designation, I think that's
Yeah, I mean, typically a document like that would establish the time period, or it easily could establish the time period. But the fact that it then it does require it to accord with ecological and enhancement and mitigation strategy, it's clearly over and above what you might have as a normal landscape management type condition. We can obviously consider the appropriate time period when that plan comes through. That maintenance would be taken on by the town council, obviously then as the people who then manage the car parking spaces.
It's an interesting point because I'm not sure whether the curtilage of this particular thing falls within wider curtilage of Ingress Park, because Ingress Park as an entity, as a management company, the Ingress Park Management Group, that is responsible for the maintenance of all worker maintenance in that area. Now, so as far as I can see, it will either be maintained by the Ingress Park Management Group, first of all, which is located there. But if it does fall outside their controlled area, and they're very, very sensitive about what comes in and what goes out, I feel sure that it will be maintained by Swanscombe Green High Town Council. Have a fairly strong ethos in this sort of area, and a whole team of full army of little men that go around and sort things out. So it won't be allowed. The people who live here will not allow this to get to be missed out. There's lots of folk that will be jumping all over people, and if it isn't the English Park Management Group that do it, they are very quick to make sure that it's sorted.
It is tricky though, isn't it? Because this is I think the first application that we've got, which is on the SSSI, partly on it.
Yeah.
The first one I brought to you.
We're relying on mitigation through on-site landscaping, and I just don't see how we're going to ensure that it's going to be maintained
In perpetuity. Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, if that's the committee's view, we could always consider amending that condition to make it clear that the plan should cover that period. Have there been any comments from KCC, our ecology advisors, on that at all?
They were supportive of this plan, generally speaking. What they did have, and I think it's been added as an informative, but what they did say was to provide the tools with, to whoever takes over the building. So we can review that and make sure that that's kind of covered within, conditions and stuff like that. But yeah, they were quite satisfied with the use of a landscaping condition on that.
I suppose the only other thing, just to sort of chuck into the mix, really, obviously, other site would still be within the SSSI. This doesn't change the SSSI boundary.
No, I
And
understand.
landowners have obligations to maintain SSSIs, and they're supposed to be great management plans in England. So there would obviously be another sort of other hook through that requirement, through that process. But I mean, as I say, we can certainly look at if the committee landed on that.
Then it seems to me that it's an important point, because we are being asked to agree this on the basis that there's adequate mitigation, and the adequate mitigation is, in effect, the main part of it is the green area around the area which is used for car parking. Condition 5, it seems to me, could be adequate because details have to be submitted together with a maintenance schedule. They have to be approved, and once approved, the management and maintenance shall be carried out in accordance with the approved details. So I suppose my question is, the plan has to accord with the principles set out in the James Blake mitigation strategy. Does that strategy cover this point, the period of maintenance, is the question.
In terms of, yeah, so it does, they've outlined the principles and stuff. I will need to double check with the wording in that with the time frame in terms of if it's, they've said within the lifetime of the development with that. So that's something I can come back to with that.
Well, we got to make a decision today, so I don't think there's a coming back unless you want to look at it now. I mean, what we could consider, and this is just to ask the officers whether this is possible. I'd be a bit concerned about in perpetuity because I think it probably would be bordering on unreasonable. But I think you be properly preserved and monitored throughout the period of use of the site as a car park would be that, and I think that might, so that will be making claim that when this maintenance schedule is submitted, it's got to make provision for maintenance throughout the period during which the site is used as a car park or for car parking. Better.
The thing is that car parking is exclusive to the actual community centre.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in many respects, it's the lifespan of the community centre. If somebody came in and took over the community centre at the level it's going to happen, could do, then all of a sudden there is a slight change. But I agree entirely with what you say. I'm just saying that you could extend it a little bit to say that it's got to link in with the use of the community centre as a community centre.
But don't we want this area maintained whilst the land is used as a car park, whether it's used for the community centre or not? I mean, that might make the maintenance period shorter rather than longer. So I think we should say
The logic is, yeah.
throughout the period when it's in use for car park.
Okay.
I'm quite happy.
Any other contributions? Penny?
I don't know whether there's any obligation parking to provide disabled parking. I'm just wondering about the size and whether that's something that has been looked into, and whether that's a requirement.
Yes, so that has been reviewed. So we have the EDC Sustainable Transport Strategy Guide, and we also use the Dartford Local Plan Parking SPD document. For this sort of development, there was no requirement for provision of that.
That would be a good addition. If there's no requirement under the guide, perhaps we can't insist on it, but perhaps in future, for these types of application, look at that, because
I wonder whether the town council might put something in there anyway.
Yes, I mean, obviously, as the applicant said, they've been heavily involved in the proposal. So I'm sort of thinking about the users and sort of trying to sort of be partly guided by the use of buildings and spaces. So I would imagine that if they'd identified that as a particular concern, that would have then included in the proposals. But yeah, absolutely. Obviously, once it's been created, they could obviously designate a space. Obviously, they are standard size spaces.
Control, they don't have that extra bit.
But obviously, the scheme is in front of us, it is as it is. But yeah, we're obviously happy to consider that in future, in any future similar applications. I've just found the document referred to in draft condition 5. There aren't any time periods in that from what I can see. Yeah, we would obviously be normally expecting that to be included in the submission. But yes, obviously the condition itself could be amended to refer to the for the period that the site's being used for car.
any other contributions? Shall we move to consider our decision? So got the recommendation for us. We note that because Natural England have objected, we have to give them notice in accordance with the provisions which are set out. And we can't issue a decision notice until they've had a chance to respond and to decide what they want to do about it. So I'm going to propose that we accept the recommendation with an amendment to condition 5, which in the 3 lines up from the bottom, after the words properly preserved, monitored, will add the words throughout the period during which the site is used for car parking. So that's the proposal. What does everyone think? Those in favour? Thank you. So that completes that item. Thank you to everybody who contributed. So we are on to item 6, delegated items. That is for.
It's for noting as usual,
Yes.
Chair. So there's this covers August. It's only 1 month, but it's 20 decisions. The officers managed to get lots of decisions made during the summer, which is brilliant. But you're happy to take any questions on that as usual. Follow up with me separately.
Any questions from anybody? Yes.
Just ask one. The retrospective application, so 9 Dynasty Close, conversion of garage into habitable room. Obviously, it's clear that permitted development rights have been removed. But did we have conversations with the applicant? Because often you can still convert and achieve the same front elevation and so on.
Yeah, the concern, I understand the concern was the loss of the parking space.
So
yes.
So it wasn't the visual, I'd assumed it was the appearance of the dwelling.
No. The visual impact was okay. It was a loss of parking.
Yeah.
And there have been discussions with the applicants after the decision was issued. Obviously, as it is retrospective, we need to make a decision on enforcement action. So
Okay, thank you.
I was interested to see the Georgian Dragon exchange was refused.
Yes, another refusal for the Georgian Dragon. And Jed was the case officer, wasn't it? So the refusal was around the lack of justification or the lack of
marketing
for the community
for the community use of it.
Yeah. So there's requirements in the development plan about options for the community, and we were convinced that the was done. That was also the same, supported by Dark.
Yes, no, it's pleasing to see.
Is it an asset of community value?
It's not designated as such. So as far as I'm aware.
No, but the policy requires those types of buildings to be marketed for a period to see whether there are opportunities, and it didn't hit the sort of period.
Thank you.
Anything else on delegated items? No? Well, thank you very much, everybody. I think that completes our meeting. Thank you to those who joined online. So the recording could switch on.